2, 3, 4.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. My name is Christoph Zürn, and this is the podcast for people with a musical heart and a wicked job. We're looking for stories, insights and tools from the big world of music to inspire leaders and followers to listen, tune, play and perform in whatever field you're operating. Making sense of sound is one of the most challenging jobs we ask our brains to do. But how does this work? Well, our hearing is always on. And we can't close our ears the way we close our eyes. Yet we can ignore unimportant sounds. We don't just hear, we engage with sounds. Today we speak with Dr. Nina Kraus, scientist, inventor, book author, professor of Neurobiology at Northwestern University, and Director of BrainVolts. Nina's research reveals that our daily lives, filled with sound, play a significant role in shaping how our brain interprets the sounds we hear. This influence can be both positive, as seen in musicians and bilinguals, and negative, as in the case of concussion, hearing loss, and language disorders. Sound, therefore, leaves a profound imprint on our identities. Nina talks about the partnership of sound and the brain and how sound processing drives many of the brain's core functions. To give you an idea of our conversation, here's a short example of what Nina calls
what we know influences how we hear.
So, what we are paying attention to is part of our brain. So, here are 4 seconds of noise and speech mixed together. And welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. Did you hear anything? Could you understand something? Okay, here comes the speech with the noise turned down. And welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. Okay, and now I play the first sample again. And welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. So, it was the exact same sample I played for you before. So, relax and join our conversation about exploring sound and listening. Hello, Nina. Welcome to the Power of Music Thinking.
Well, hello, Christoph. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast.
Thank you. That's my pleasure. I always start with the same question. That's some kind of boring, but people who are listening recently, they already get an idea of who's there. So the first question goes like, what was your first sonic experience or record or concert that had an impact on you?
You know, I can't say that it's a first. I can't find a first because I feel like I have always been immersed in sound. I grew up in a household where more than one language was spoken. Oh. My mother was a pianist, and I spent many hours, I loved it underneath the piano, so I would bring my little things and play with my toys under the piano because it felt great to be there when she was playing. And really one of the very first languages that I learned was how to sing in harmony. Because that was also something my mother and father often did. And it was just a wonderful, it's a language,
Yeah, if you're listening to music, so music was just around, maybe people didn't tell that this is music. It was just a part of your sonic soundscape.
That's right. I think I grew up knowing that there was something very powerful in sound, with the languages, with music in particular, but also, I lived in Italy for quite a while, and I spent many hours of my life in the Dolomites.
Ah, okay.
And so I love, being in the mountains, and there's so much to listen to there also.
Absolutely. So your first language is then English or
Italian.
Italian? Nice.
Italiano, and I'm very, very happy because just yesterday, my book, I wrote a book of sound mind,
Yeah.
which is my love letter to sound. And I just yesterday got the translation in Italian, La mente sonora.
La mente
So,
sonora sounds beautiful.
isn't it? Yeah, very sonorous.
Oh, perfect. All right. So, Nina, will you share with the listeners who you are? What do you do for a living?
I'm a biologist. And, because when I first went to college, I was interested in sound, and I thought I would major in comparative literature because I knew some languages and I liked to read. And then I took a biology class, and I thought, oh, this is exciting. And then I found a book called The Biological Bases of Language, and I thought, wonderful. So we can
Wow.
read these things. And really, the work that I do, I'm a professor at Northwestern University. I teach, I do research, and as you go to our homepage, you will see right away that we study many things. We study music. I would say that is one of the biggest things: music and rhythm and head injury, concussion. Because if making sense of sound is one of the hardest things we ask our brain to do. And you can imagine if you get hit in the head, it will disrupt that. We look at bilingualism, we look at language, we look at language disorders, reading disorders, autism, we look at aging, many, what is it that helps, that gets in the way of our listening in complex environments like our noisy world. And so we look, you might wonder, what are they even doing in this laboratory, which we call BrainVolts? So what are they doing at BrainVolts? Well, it's all under the umbrella of sound and the brain. So you can just see by that sound touches everything we care about.
Wow.
So we research, we publish a lot of papers, but I think one of the biggest things that is front of our minds is communicating. Because first of all, sound is about communicating. Sound connects us, and so we really want people to know, everybody, no matter what you do for a living. We want everyone to know how important sound is, and especially music, in our lives. And I can say that from a biological perspective. So, so I wrote this book of sound mind, and it is, so on the one hand, I'm a card-carrying neuroscientist. I've published over 400 scientific articles. But this book of sound mind, how our brain constructs a meaningful sonic world, is written for any curious person. It is conversationally written in the same way as the website has pictures. The book has 80 original illustrations because science is art and art is science. Also, you will read many personal stories because science is done by people.
Right.
And so it is my hope with this book, and I just got a Guggenheim Fellowship to write another book. This one will be all about music, so I'm very, very happy and excited about that. But on our website, which I know you will link our website, and if you look for BrainVolts, you will probably find it. It is a labor of love also, and it really is written for parents, teachers, scientists of every flavor. There's a lot there. And so if you go to the homepage, you will see there is an icon of a tour bus. Mm-hmm. And if you hit that, you will get a 2-minute video that will help you find what you're looking for, because the website is huge.
Absolutely.
But it's there to communicate. And so the other thing that I do is I spend a lot of time speaking to people. So, for example, I will go anywhere, be it our public library, our area churches, the Kennedy Center, Carnegie Hall. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. I've kind of had a lot of speaking engagements because I want deeply to communicate how important sound is. What I have learned as a biologist from science all over the world, I want people to know this so that we can make the best choices we can for ourselves, for our family, for our educational system, for health, for healthcare, and for the health of our sonic world. And I think that, we all want to do what is healthy, but we often don't know. And we don't know with sound because sound is invisible. And we live in this increasingly visually biased world, and also an increasingly noisy world. So it makes it even hard to listen. And we're losing the ability to listen. We're forgetting how to listen.
Your book is so full of on one part of stories and nice explanations. And what I really like, after every chapter, there's a list of all the references. So if someone is interested, you can dive even more. And that also connects your book with the website and with your talks. So I saw one or two TED Talk ish things. So that's very nice. So this makes you let's say, the ambassador of sound, or if I may say in Italian, ambasciatrice. So.
Grazie. Con piacere.
But let's dive into it. Maybe so if, in the power of music thinking, we have conversations with people that do something special and are musicians or doing something with music. And they can come over all over the field, a chef, a director of a school. And the idea is then we talk about what they do and their musical part. So, and that gives a lot of analogies from one field to the other. And that's a little bit the idea of the podcast, so that we cue people, or we just give them a little hint to think, hang on, maybe I should dive a little bit more into listening, maybe sometimes even compared to speaking, because when you speak, it's hard to listen. And that helps also for leadership. And what would be something that people could start with?
I maintain that we are all musical, and we all respond to music. And I think an important message is that you don't have to be good, whatever that means, to enjoy all of the biological benefits that you get from music. You can start, I now have 2 grandbabies. And you
congratulations.
You take their little feet, and of course I talk to them in Italian. So, I go, batti, batti, I piedini, and anybody can do this. We all like to sing. And I think there's nothing like making music, really. And I would take any opportunity. Again, don't worry if you're good or not, but making sound to meaning connections. If you're learning to drum, or you're learning to play the piano, or whatever it is, making these sound to meaning connections are the healthiest things that you can do, because not only is it important for music, it is important for your ability to understand emotion in sound and people's speech. One thing that is very important is that biologically, the hearing brain is much bigger than we usually think it is. Yes, it has our ear and the auditory areas, but our hearing brain engages how we feel, how we connect our other senses, how we move, even our viscera, our guts, are connected to the hearing system. So music is really, I call it the jackpot for the hearing brain, because music really engages how we think, how we feel, how we combine our other senses, how we move. And so there's nothing better, to my mind, in the sonic world than music and making music. And I know this as an amateur musician. I'm not very good, but I love to play. I play some harmonica, I play some piano, I sing harmony. I used to play a lot of electric guitar, some drums, but I just take every opportunity that I can to make music, and especially with my friends and family.
Right. Sometimes when we have the conversation, it's like, when you're in an organization, and one thing is to share at least what you like to hear or what you love, and sometimes also what you dislike, and then you can talk about it. What is it? What doesn't resonate with you? To say it like that, and in some companies, you could help, let's say, teams to play together, and even it could be very, very low. I think in your book you also mentioned that when people walking together, that they get into the same pace. Can you elaborate a little bit more? What happens when we do this?
Yes. So synchrony. We synchronize, and also we should think that our brain is full of brain rhythms that synchronize. And music, for example, if you and I are making music together, or even as we're talking together, our brains are synchronizing in certain ways that make us more connected. So, physiologically, this is really happening, and music does this better than anything I know. And I mentioned quickly earlier that, if you get hit in the head, one of the things that it does biologically is it disrupts the synchrony. So one of the things that we do in my lab at BrainVolts is we measure sound processing in the brain. So, as I'm talking to you now, the neurons in your brain are producing electricity. And of course, electricity is the currency of the nervous system. And first of all, we find that so we can tell a lot about a person's brain, and also how synchronous their responses are with respect to the sound that they're listening to. So there are many common features, and I like to use the analogy of a nose. We all have a nose, but each one of our noses is different, and each one of our brains is similar in many ways, but also different, distinctive. And so in terms of listening and playing music, people have very different preferences. And, I think that often in this fix-it world, people are asking me, what's the best music? What is the best instrument? What is the best, and always as I give the answer to my students when they ask me the answer to any question, almost any complicated question, the answer is, it depends.
That's the only honest, or maybe the only truthful answer, because everybody likes something different. And sometimes you may even experience it if someone says, "Oh, that's a very nice song or band. You should listen to it." And then you say, "Well," so
yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But something that may interest you in particular is that we can hear the brain's responses to sound. Basically the idea is, so we measure sound processing in the brain just with scalp electrodes that pick up the electricity, and as I see, there's a nice big microphone in front of you right now, and that is taking the sound waves that are in the room and converting it to electricity so that it can be delivered to a speaker. Well, you can take the electricity from the brain and deliver it to a speaker, and you can listen to the brain. And so we can hear, for example, We know educationally that the effect of a music education really changes and sculpts and shapes for the best how your brain processes sound. And so we can listen to a brain of a child who has a music education, nothing special, just, because when, you make music, again, you are learning to make these sound to meaning connections, which is important for anything. And with music, it's very subtle. And if you learn those connections in music, it transfers to everything else. And then you can compare it to the sound of a child who does not have a music education and, the person in the same classroom. And you can hear, again, just like with the nose, if the sound is a hard day's night, if that's the music, you will recognize it as a hard day's night in both children.
Right.
But in one, it will be much more accurate and clear and crisp, and in the other, it will be muddier sounding.
This has to do, I think I saw on one of your talks, the noise and signal thing, so that, but maybe you can explain much better what you did?
Yes. So noise is a big topic. Noise both inside the head and outside the head. Let's talk about noise inside the head first. So, there's always electricity going on in our brain. So, and many of it is not synchronized. Much of it is just random electrical activity. Think of it like static. And what we have learned is that children who live in poverty have a more, you might call it a noisier brain. There is more static. And this is also linked with maternal education, which is generally linked with how much a child is read to and spoken to. But we see that children who live in poverty have these very, very noisy brains. And you can imagine how that is going to get in the way of processing any sounds, any signals that are important.
Right.
And interestingly, so we've done all this work with athletes. Mm-hmm. We find that, we measure all of the athletes at Northwestern University, our Division I athletes, all 500 of them who are on our various teams, all the different sports. And one of the things we find is that these very healthy people have very quiet brains. Oh. So they have a very quiet brain, so that they are able to pick up on, they have to be attentive and aware of all kinds of sonic cues at the same time. And they are better able to do that because they have a very quiet background.
Okay, how did they get it? And I can imagine if someone is listening now to our conversation, like from, hey, hang on, I also want a quiet brain. How do I do this?
I think being physically fit is one of the very best, and we know that. We know that being physically fit, eating a balanced diet, this is good for our health. I don't know about the balanced diet biologically, but I can tell you in terms of being physically fit that we see that our athletes have very quiet brains. So, one of the benefits of being strong and flexible and really making that a part of your life is that it not only, helps your body and what you can see, but it helps your brain, what you can't see, and how you are connected then or not connected with your sonic environment.
And that's also linked to aging that you mentioned before.
Sometimes, and with aging, there is such a huge, I can think of no other population in which there is more variability. We have some 90-year-olds who have very quiet brains. and have beautiful, crisp responses to sound, even when they have a hearing loss. They have really learned how to make sense of sound. And typically, as you get older, the brain does get noisier. But there are many people who are older and just have a noisier brain.
How come?
Well, just because I think that with aging, I think that the random background activity is, especially if you might have a hearing loss, and if you are not as engaged with your sonic world, because one of the things that we really know, and we know this biologically, is that we are what we do. So if as an older person you are withdrawn from connections, and this often happens with aging, then the noise kind of sets in, and
right.
you also lose the clarity. So I would expect, and I don't know, why this is the case, but I would expect that it has to do with the lack of engagement, because we don't see, for example, people who make music, don't have excessively noisy brains. So I think that is a good indication. People who speak more than one language.
Yeah.
So, but maybe. I think that social engagement is really important. The actual day to day. It's biologically, we are what we do from birth. I always say healthy aging starts at birth. Sing to your child.
Yeah.
And so health, but also depending on what we do in our lives, and we know, for example, if you have had a music education, or if you've just learned to play music, even when you're older, decades after music education has stopped, your hearing brain is still more precise and better able to code sound, because once you have learned to make good sound to meaning connections, you continue to do that in everything you do. And of course, if you continue to make music, and when I talk about a musician, I want to include myself. So somebody who is not especially good, but plays music regularly in their lives. So I try to play at least a couple times a week. I've tried to play, if I can, maybe even 20 minutes a day, or, just, it doesn't matter what. And so, but all of this has, continuing benefit. And I think also because the hearing brain is so vast and includes our emotions and our viscera, our guts, we feel better. People wonder about, what our guts, our viscera. Have you ever noticed how food, your appetite is different? It's off in an airplane.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Well, people thought that the reason for that was because of the dryness of the air. Mm-hmm. But scientists got to the bottom of this and did very controlled experiments. And what they found was what affects the appetite is the noise. So you have this noise, and evolutionarily, we are wired to really pay attention to sound, because sound is our alarm sense. And who's hungry when there's an avalanche coming? Mm-hmm. Right?
Right. But Nina, would this mean if let's say as a practical tip, if I have to take a plane, or let's say sometimes even a train can be noisy, or somewhere in the street, if I would wear headphones with noise canceling, which we see when we look outside on the streets, that more and more young people are cutting off themselves from let's say, the sounds that are there. Is this What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, when I'm on an airplane, I just use passive earplugs. And I am not a fan of noise canceling, because noise canceling is an active process, and it exhausts me, actually, to listen, to have noise canceling headphones for a while. So I would do that. But I think the most important message is, okay, so people say, I'm so stressed. They say, I'm anxious. They say, I have difficulty focusing. A large part of this has to do with what noise, which is what I am defining as meaningless, unwanted sound. And I'm not talking about loud sounds. I mean, very, very, very loud sounds, everybody knows will damage your ear. I'm talking about what is going to damage your brain and your body. And we know this. There is and the noise chapter in my book reviews a lot of the biological evidence. But, and how many times, there's a truck outside your window. You don't even know the truck is there.
Yeah.
And then he turns off the ignition, or, you're in your kitchen and the air conditioner cycles off, or the refrigerator. Yeah. So you didn't even know it was there. But when it turns off, you go like this, right? Because Absolutely. Your body knew all the time. We are living in a constant state of low-level stress. And my advice, and this is real practical advice, is that when you hear sounds and in your own environment, you ask yourself, is this necessary? And can you, do you have the ability to turn it off? And I really think that if people would know about the bad effects of noise, moderate level noise on our health, they would make quieter vacuum cleaners, quieter air conditioners, quieter jet planes, quieter lawn care. There are you go into a bathroom now, a restroom, and they have those air blowing machines to dry your hands. Right. First of all, it's very unsanitary because it's blowing your germs all over the bathroom. Secondly, it's hugely loud. But if people knew that, as I said, we want to do the right thing. And yes, it's going to be more expensive to get a quieter hairdryer, but market forces, the markets will adjust. And it's a matter of knowledge. It's a matter of knowing, which is why I think it's important. And, that's why I want to be on your podcast, Christoph, is that maybe one person will listen and take to heart what I'm saying about noise and think about what they can do in their daily life. And we know the technology is there. I mean, people have been making quiet motors since before World War II. There were submarines that were undetected. It was very important. Right. We know in nature, owls would starve if the mouse heard the owl coming to eat it. Yeah. Disaster for the owl, right? But the owl has these wonderful feathers, right? That the whole baffling system that attenuates the sound. So think about your everyday sounds. Think about, is this necessary? Can I turn it off? Can I encourage other people? And I think this also goes to something you talk about, I think, in your podcast is music in airports and stores and workplaces. I love music, but I don't want it to be something I have to tune out, because music can be noise. If, for any number of reasons, first of all, you like the music and you kind of get distracted, or it's just more information that your brain has to make sense of. And so we have to work that much harder. So we have to just think about, and even in restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of restaurants are just designed just to get as much people into the room. And you can't even talk with the person that is maybe 1 meter away from you. One question. when we think about these sounds, let's say the annoying sound from the truck, and I think everyone can imagine this, and we just experience it when it goes off. If we would, if it's not too loud, if we would embrace that sound, would this be better for us? I have a little story for you. I think last week I took the train to Utrecht. And at a certain moment, I was listening to music on my phone, and I heard this squeaking sound. And first, I thought it's so annoying, and then I thought, what is it? And then I thought, what is it? And then I get up, and then I realized that these two wagons, where they were coupled, they were doing a wink sound. And so I even recorded the sound, so just for the fun of it, and then it was not annoying anymore. Is this something, do we have to embrace the sound?
Yes, I think there are times where we can, of course, embrace the sound. And, I think this takes us back to biological principles. If we think about the hearing brain being vast and involving our emotions, so suddenly, a distraction became something interesting.
Yeah,
and
right.
even with musicians, sometimes it's kind of, yes, musicians who listen to very, very, very loud music, make loud music, can get a hearing loss, but in general it's less than you would expect because they like it.
Yes,
and so the liking it makes it much better. Yes, absolutely. And if you know that it's the sound of something really worthwhile, then that changes things. But most of the time, it's just noise.
Yeah, right. And I think this also goes together with, is it harmony or is it disharmony? Because sometimes disharmony, especially in music, could be super interesting because you think, hey, where does it go to? How long will it be on that state? Will there be a solution at the end, or will it stay like this?
Oh, yes, of course. It's wonderful. I mean, I think, so I have to, so now everybody knows when they ask me, what is your favorite music, and you have to choose, which, I mean, to me, my favorite music is good music. I don't care what genre it is. But if I'm forced to choose, I will say metal.
Oh, right. Cool.
Nice. and there's so much wonderful, wonderful dissonance that I just embrace.
What would be your favorite metal playlist? The first 3 songs or 5?
Well, I mean, do you know Dream Evil?
No.
Do you know? I mean, just.
Dream Evil already sounds interesting, so all of us can Google it or look it up in Spotify. But, would you use the sound to bring you in a different state, or is it just the pleasure to listen to?
I don't even know. It's because, again, it's all connected. We all know that this is all connected. I mean, even something like everyone will know Judas Priest.
Yeah. All right. I once heard Black Sabbath, but that was end of the 70s, and it was the loudest concert I ever heard.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain time I put something into my ear because there were no earplugs all over, but it had such a nice power, and also the harmonies in loud electric guitar can be so pleasing in some way.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, vibration is kind of the essence of life.
Right. We don't only hear with our ears. We also hear with our body, especially if we're in the first row of, let's say, a Judas Priest concert.
Yeah. And there was actually a very nice study done by a group in Canada that found that people at a club, that they danced more when there was very, very low frequency vibration in the dance floor, vibration that when they were asked, can you hear this? Can you perceive this? They couldn't. But their body was subliminally experiencing it, but the data just show that when this was on, they danced more.
Right. By the way, Drone and Grateful Dead, I think you're working on something, right?
Yeah. So, Mickey Hart is one of the drummers of the Grateful Dead, and he has been a wonderful mentor to me. First of all, before we spoke science, I loved their music for many, many years. I still do. But he has something called the beam, which is a monochord. And it is, you basically are hearing a single note, but you're also hearing, various resonances. People have known for, scientists are very late coming to the party. People have
Welcome.
People have known for centuries that that chanting and that drones, which is basically a single vibrating note,
Right.
can have all kinds of effects on the body that we're now starting to understand more biologically, and so we're doing some of this biological work ourselves. Mickey Hart has also he has various sound tracks that he thinks are especially good for inducing certain states, and so we've been measuring the brain's response to these, and what we can see is that there is certainly an increase in the synchrony, especially in certain frequencies of the brain waves. But we have so much to learn about this, and it kind of also speaks to we have so many projects that where we see a translation, for example, also clinically, we can use these brain responses to see if a child is likely to develop a reading problem years before he develops it, or if there is a language disorder or an auditory processing disorder, and we think that this is ready to be, some people are already using it in clinical care, but it should be in the mainstream.
Right.
Anyway, we have many, many, many things that we want to do, and if any of your listeners have advice for us to raise money, the work that we do is very expensive, and I talk about this in my book. My husband calls my lab my hot dog stand because Northwestern University pays me. I'm a tenured professor, but 100% of all the work that we do, all the fancy machines, all the incredibly wonderful people who we've worked together for decades, actually. So a team of people. This is very expensive, and we spend so much, and we've been, we're successful. We get grants from the government and from private foundations and from more and more private philanthropy.
Oh, good.
But we are spending so much time writing and rewriting grants. If anybody can help us, we would welcome so much. Again, on our website, there's a big button on the top. It says donate. And you have to make sure to click. There's a box that says for research in the auditory neuroscience laboratory. So it comes directly to our lab and not to Northwestern in general.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. That's important.
Yes, but it's very easy to donate, or you can write a check and send it to me, made out to the auditory neuroscience lab. But we really, we need money, sadly, so I know that your podcast is centered around business. And I don't think often of what we do as a business, except it is. Yeah. And so, so we have this hot dog stand, but we have to sell hot dogs, right? And so we need money for the hot dogs and the people to sell them. And if anybody can help us, please do.
Okay, let's keep this in mind, because also on your website, just to make that link, you also show the link to all the research you're doing, and it's open. It's like everybody can read a paper. So everybody that is interested, so it's also like a repository.
So there was a time I founded a company years ago, to try to make better products to measure sound processing in the brain. But I realized the business world is not where I belong, because in business you keep everything kind of private, and in academia you want to share. And everything, we have all kinds of codes and all kinds of programs and our sounds, our stimuli. I want to just give these away. And, if you're in business, the businesses want exclusive rights to this and that. And that's just not my mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, by the way, maybe it's a little bit wishful thinking, but I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of sharing things together, and maybe later thinking about hey, how can we all live from it together? And the link that you just mentioned, if a child comes to you, actually you can listen to their brain. And that's not a matter of speak. It's literally what you do. And then you can predict if this child will have problems with the language, with speaking. And I think we have to wait a minute and say, okay, hang on. So there is a way to get more information if we just literally listen in a special way, and we can predict things that later normally, in air quotes, where we have to do later a lot of stuff, a lot of money, a lot of organization, a lot of whatever it is, just to rewind this. And I think that's the power of sound. And also what you just said, the link through that centuries or even longer, people work with sound. So I think about, like, let's say something like a didgeridoo to make the link with the drone. It's not only if you're the didgeridoo player and you know how to do the circular breathing, and you know that this is not only just music, it's a way of being, it's a way of it has a ritualistic thing, and there is not so much on Spotify, so it's a different kind of listening that you need, that this connects us with ourselves, and even can make us better, even something, let's say, simple, like what you just mentioned, like a drone.
Yeah, music, I think you and I are on the same synchronous wave. We're riding it because, music really, it connects us, but music is a way of life. Music is a way of life. Also, with kids who have, many times we have, the parents know that there's a problem with how their child is making sense of sound. Sometimes it's called auditory processing disorder. Mm-hmm. And the child, otherwise, smart child, you take him for a hearing test, his ears are working fine. But the teachers are frustrated because he's forgetting to turn in his assignments, but he isn't really forgetting. He just didn't hear the teacher, and the kid, of course, feels terrible because he's trying to be a good kid and he's failing. But to be able to say biologically, and this has been so affirming for parents and for children, to be able to say, I can see that your brain is not processing sound in the typical way. So of course you're having difficulty. Of course it's going to be harder for you. And then, so right away, that's a huge, huge, huge thing to say. I have biological evidence, and this can also help in the school or in the workplace, because adults have this too, to get accommodations. But importantly, then people ask, well, what should I do? And, my biggest recommendation always is make music.
Yeah, what we just said in the beginning, that's a very nice link. And it doesn't matter how you do it or who you do it or even what genre or anything else, or just make sound. Maybe that's an easy start. Sing to the, let's say, to the hum of the van. You can sing a second voice to it and reframe it into something, let's say, healing.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Is there anything that we didn't touch that you thought this was, that you would like to share?
No, I think you did a really great job kind of bringing this holistic hearing health, this whole sense of the importance of sound, how it can help us for better very strongly with music and for worse with noise. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this because listening is one of the top leadership skills, and I feel honored about this. It is my mission to find, create, and share inspirations for meaningful collaboration based on music analogies. If you want to support this, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, or write a review on iTunes or Spotify. And more inspirations can be found on musicthinking.com. We have a blog, and you can download the Music Thinking Framework. And finally, I would love to hear your feedback. And if you need help with a business challenge, please reach out to me via email, podcast@musicthinking.com.